She's elegant, she's layered, and she's got some of the most visually distinct skills we've seen yet in Wuthering Waves. With a cinematic kit, stylish combos, and an epic transformation, Cartethyia delivers one of the most satisfying gameplay experiences the game has released. If you're feeling overwhelmed by her swords and 2 forms, don't worry. I'm breaking her kit down step by step to show you not just what she does, but how to actually play her effectively. Cartethyia might seem difficult at first, but once you dive in, it's surprisingly intuitive and fluid. She's a basic attack focused Aero unit with HP scaling, heavy synergy with Aero erosion, and plenty of AoE crowd control baked into her core design. She works great with Aero supportive characters like Rover, Chacona, Alto, and even Sanhua, unlocking versatile team comps that emphasize damage amplification and utility. That said, she does have a few key restrictions tied to her unique scaling, so understanding her flow and synergy is crucial. This is your complete in-depth Cartethyia guide, where we will cover her abilities, best weapons and echoes, team building strategies, rotation flow, and tips to help you unlock her full potential. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Alright, let's dive into Cartethyia's kit, starting with her base form. The core of Cartethyia's gameplay is all about rotating through her moves to build up some serious health buffs and stack Aero erosion on enemies for bonus damage. Once she's built that foundation, she transforms into Fleur-de-Lis to take advantage of these buffs and consume those Aero erosion stacks for massive damage. Now, in her base form, Cartethyia's playstyle is pretty unique. Her role revolves around generating 3 special sword shadows that provide buffs when consumed. Each sword gives unique powerful buffs during her manifest state, which you activate with their Resonance Liberation. It's like collecting little power-ups that unlock her full potential. Each unique sword activated will show an icon on your forte bar. This is important to keep track of your sword buffs. So, how do you generate these swords? Easy. Just do her basic attack chain, 4 hits, and on the 4th hit, she applies a stack of Aero erosion and summons the Sword of Divinity. Next, her heavy attack or intro skill summons the Sword of Discord. Her intro skill is a beast. It applies 2 stacks of Aero erosion and starts her attack chain on stage 2, which is a great opener to generate Sword of Divinity. Finally, her Resonance skill summons the Sword of Virtue, which launches enemies into the air and slams them down while applying 2 stacks of Aero erosion. Plus, it can be used mid-air and counts as a basic attack. Each sword sticks around for 20 seconds, and only one of each can be summoned at a time. Now here's the cool part. Cartethyia consumes these swords by performing a plunge attack, and the more swords you consume, the bigger the damage. Plus, each sword gives her a unique buff during her manifest state. This plunge attack also deals Aero erosion damage, and it's the only move in her kit that scales directly with that damage type. After consuming all 3 swords, you want to use your Liberation to enter the manifest state. Activating this state turns Cartethyia into Fleur-de-Lis. You lose up to 50% of your HP when entering this state, and it lasts 12 seconds. She also has a special mid-air attack and a unique resonance skill that summons a giant sword shadow to slam enemies. This form is where Cartethyia really shines with combos and high damage, but you'll want to get used to the timing, because her follow-up attacks need to be chained smoothly before the cooldown hits. Also, while in manifest state, every sword buff applies some very specific effects. Let's go over them real quick. First, the Sword of Divinity amps her Aero erosion damage and cuts its damage interval in half, meaning more frequent damage ticks. Second, the Sword of Justice helps spread erosion stacks to more enemies, which is huge for team fights. Third, the Sword of Virtue slows enemies and gives her interruption resistance, making her combos easier to land without getting interrupted. In addition, Cartethyia has 2 important inherent skills that you should be aware of. First one is a Heart's Truest Wishes, which increases the healing received by all resonators other than Cartethyia and Fleur-de-Lis by 20%, and their resistance to interruption is enhanced. Also, if Aero Rover is in the team, he restores additional 25 wind strings upon casting Omega Storm, which is his Resonance Liberation. Now, let's talk about Cartethyia's most important passive mechanic, Wind's Indelible Imprint. Enemies afflicted with 1 to 3 stacks of Aero erosion take 30% more damage from both Cartethyia and Fleur-de-Lis. But it gets better. If the enemy has more than 3 stacks, they take an extra 10% damage per additional stack up to 3 stacks. That means the sweet spot is 6 stacks of Aero erosion, giving you the maximum damage application from this passive. Mastering this interaction is key to getting the most out of your damage potential, especially in tougher content. Why does all of this matter? Because Fleur-de-Lis consume Aero erosion stacks to deal more damage, so stacking up Aero erosion before transforming is crucial. You want to be stacking Aero erosion like a pro to maximize her burst. This is why Aero Rover is perfect here. Rover can double the max stacks of Aero erosion you can apply, taking it from 3 to 6. This makes a huge difference in performance. If you're worried about stacking erosion without an on-field applicator like Chacona, don't stress. Cartethyia applies 5 stacks through her intro skill, basic attacks, and resonance skill, and you can swap back and forth between forms during Manifest to refresh those stacks, but it will require good execution and a longer rotation. Her Forte circuit also powers the entire Fleur-de-Lis form. All her attacks restore conviction on hit, and you need 120 conviction to cast your finishing move to end the rotation. Speaking of her rotation, it might sound complex at first, but once you get it down, it flows naturally. Begin with your intro skill, then hit till your 4th basic attack, cast resonance skill, and do a plunge attack to consume all your swords. Then activate Liberation to turn into Fleur-de-Lis and spam attacks to eat those Aero erosion stacks. Build your Forte circuit and charge up your conviction till you can cast your big finishing move. When you use your ultimate, Blade of Howling Squall, this move consumes your circuit, heals you for 50% of your max HP, and deals massive AoE Aero damage. The ultimate also consumes all Aero erosion stacks and amplifies damage accordingly. In conclusion, the more Aero erosion stacks are applied during your ultimate, the crazier the damage. Now let's go over Cartethia's standard rotation to simplify her combat flow. Starting with her base form, your goal is to summon all 3 sword shadows to take advantage of their buffs. Begin with 4 basic attacks or 3 after intro skill, then resonance skill which also takes you mid-air, then heavy attack while you're in mid-air, then plunge and use Liberation to transform into Fleur-de-Lis. While in Fleur-de-Lis form, your goal is to maximize Aero erosion stack damage and burst your enemies down quickly before your manifest state ends. You can use different combos depending if you're fighting a group of enemies or a single boss, but the most standard one is by starting with your resonance skill, 3 basic attacks, cast resonance skill again, 3 more basic attacks, then heavy attack, and enhanced heavy attack, then cast your ultimate as your finishing move once your conviction is full. And that wraps up Cartethia's core rotation. Now let's dive into which characters bring out her full potential. Starting with her premium team, Cartethyia pairs best with Chacona and Aero Rover. The outro skills of this team has amazing synergy, which makes it superior to any other. Chacona not only provides consistent Aero erosion stacks, she also provides 100% amplified Aero erosion damage. Aero Rover increases the max Aero erosion stacks from 3 to 6, while also providing damage and utility. If you don't have Chacona, your next best substitute is Shorekeeper. Shorekeeper does not give any Aero buffs, but makes up for it by providing 12.5% crit rate, 25% crit damage, 25% attack, and 15% damage amplify buffs to your whole team. If you don't have either Shorekeeper or Chacona, that is okay. There are some good free-to-play options as well. The best free-to-play team is Cartethyia, Sanhua, and Aero Rover. You can swap Aero Rover with Verena as well based on preference, but generally Aero Rover will dish out more damage, especially with Windward Pilgrimage Echo set. Sanhua is also great for 2 main reasons. 1, she provides a 38% basic attack damage buff, which is one of Cartethia's main damage outputs. 2, her rotation and field time is extremely short and easy. If for some reason you don't want to use Sanhua, you can use Alto for his 23% Aero damage buff. However, his longer rotation and smaller buffs is inferior to Sanhua. Now let's go over how to build Cartethyia. Starting with her talent tree, you want to prioritize her Forte circuit. It directly boosts her manifest form's damage. After that, prioritize Resonance Liberation, which is a huge chunk of her burst output, then her normal attack. These are the top 3 talents you should max first as soon as possible. Her Resonance skill and intro skill can be left at level 8 or maxed later since they have less impact. Let's talk about weapons, starting with the obvious top choice, Defier's Thorn. Cartethia's signature weapon is, without a doubt, her best in slot by a mile. Not only does it provide a massive 72.2% HP boost, which directly fuels her kit, but it also comes with 2 powerful passives, an 8% defense ignore passive, and 20% general damage amplification to enemies afflicted with Aero erosion. These stats align perfectly with her core mechanics, making this weapon completely uncontested in terms of raw synergy and scaling. If you can't get your hands on her signature, Camellia's weapon is the runner-up. It offers 24.3% crit rate, and its passive adds 30% basic attack damage, which Cartethyia makes great use of considering how often she's chaining normal attacks. Only slightly behind Camellia's weapon, Emerald of Genesis is your next best option. While Cartethyia doesn't fully benefit from every stat on it, she doesn't have many strong alternatives outside of her signature, so this weapon holds up well by default. If you are a new player and don't have any of these, there is a 3-star option which serves as an HP percent stat stick. It's better than any 4-star options currently, however it is subpar to the other weapons. I strongly recommend using this only temporarily till you pull Emerald of Genesis off the permanent banner. In short, her signature is king, but if you're still building up resources or saving pulls, Camellia's weapon and Emerald of Genesis are your best choices. Next, let's dive into Cartethia's Echo build. This is where you don't want to mess up. Her best Echo set is Windward Pilgrimage. It grants her a 40% boost to Aero damage and an extra 10% crit rate whenever she hits enemies affected by Aero erosion, which, thanks to her kit, is happening constantly. If you're still working on building her Echo set, you can temporarily get by with Sierra Gale or Gust of Welkin as temporary placeholders. These aren't bad, but they're only stepping stones, especially since missing that 10% crit rate can really hurt her consistency. Now let's talk main stats, and this is where things get interesting. Cartethyia doesn't follow the usual stat build that most Resonators do. Her ideal setup involves 2 4-cost Echoes focused on crit stats, and 3 1-cost Echoes stacked with HP % as a main stat. A 4-4-1-1-1 configuration that takes full advantage of her unique HP scaling while also having essential crit stats. Why go this route? Because not only does her kit naturally boost Aero damage, but she gets incredible returns from HP scaling, and her signature weapon doesn't provide crit stats, which means she really needs to make up for it through Echoes. If you're using her signature weapon or Unflickering Veiler, go for 1 crit rate and 1 crit damage Echo in your 4-cost slots. But if you're running Red Spring or Emerald of Genesis, which already give crit rate, then double down on crit damage with both 4 costs. As for her active Echo, your best bet is Reminiscence Fleur-de-Lis. It's tied directly to her character and boosts Aero damage by 20% while active, making it a perfect fit for her playstyle. For substats, focus on crit rate, crit damage, HP %, energy regen up to 120%, and basic attack damage %. She can benefit a little from liberation damage substats, but resonance skill and heavy attack bonuses are mostly wasted on her. And there you have it. Getting Cartethia's Echo build right will take some effort, but once it's in place, she becomes an unstoppable force in any team comp. Alright, let's break down Cartethia's resonance chain. She gets some serious power spikes as you move up the sequences. At sequence 1, she becomes noticeably better for mob clearing and longer battles, especially in content like Whimpering Waste. Her ultimate also gains a huge boost, granting up to 100% extra crit damage when her conviction bar is full, lasting 15 seconds or activating right after she casts her Blade of Howling Squall. It's a solid early damage spike that makes her feel much more impactful. Sequence 2 is where things get really interesting. The moment she transforms into Fleur-de-Lis with her ultimate, she increases her Aero erosion stack limit by 3, meaning less dependence on Aero Rover. If you do pair her with Rover, you can hit a 9-stack ceiling. Keep in mind that only 6 stacks is the cap for damage amplification. With sequence 3 unlocked, her basic attack stage 5, mid-air attack, heavy attack, and resonant skill all apply 2 stacks of Aero erosion. And since her ultimate's damage scales with the number of attacks consumed, this upgrade directly contributes to doubling the damage potential of her finisher. This also means you don't have to rely on Chacona to apply consistent Aero erosion. Sequence 4 and 5 have smaller benefits with some damage boost and a shield that activates if you receive a fatal blow. They're nice to have, but not game-changing. Sequence 6 is where Cartethyia becomes OP. After using her ultimate, instead of consuming Aero erosion stacks, she maxes them out on the enemy, flipping the mechanic on its head. On top of that, for 30 seconds after casting her intro or ultimate, any additional stacks that goes past the normal cap instantly ticks for extra damage. So if you have Chacona feeding her stacks during this window, that's free damage ticks every 1.5 seconds. And the crazy part, enemies affected by this also takes 40% more damage from Fleur-de-Lis. Honestly, you can play blindfolded with this node. So the ideal sequence node progression is S0, then go for S2 or S3 for big upgrades, and if you're going all in, skip straight to S6. Now that we covered everything you need to master Cartethyia, let's break down her pros and cons to better assess her value. For pros, she is a top-tier DPS. When fully optimized and paired with the right teammates, Cartethyia delivers some of the highest damage numbers in the entire game. She provides built-in resistance to interruptions. Once you master her inputs, her flow becomes so smooth that it's nearly impossible to mess up her rotation. She also has a self-sufficient kit. She can heal herself, apply and amplify Aero erosion on her own, and even enable her own buffs. Without optimal gear, she is still very strong. Even if you don't have her signature weapon or best in slot team, she still performs exceptionally well with the right Echo setup. And lastly, let's be honest, her ultimate animation is absolute cinema. It's one of the most satisfying finishers in the game. As for cons, Cartethyia is resource hungry. She performs best with her signature weapon, specific team members, and she requires unconventional HP scaling builds. Don't expect to share your echoes with anyone else. She is team dependent and heavy AoE content, especially Whimpering Wastes. She can lose Aero erosion stacks quickly. Without a teammate like Chikona to reapply them, this can reduce her overall clear speed. And her kit is complex. Reading her in-game skill description feels like flipping through a novel. Thankfully, there's a shortcut menu, but expect a learning curve. And that wraps up our full Cartethyia guide, the queen of Aero and the most dramatic sword dropper in the game. Like, subscribe, and I'll keep you updated with more videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.